let's go. We were going to play this clip yesterday. I'm not terribly interested in, continuing to talk about, just some random pundit on MSNBC. I'm a random pundit on MSNBC. And I don't know if I would like it if somebody built their whole YouTube show. Of course,
you would.
I would like it. I would like it. But that aside, and I want to say, I encourage you to do that. Actually, I've had a pretty good experience with that in the past. But I think this is important because Michael Bloomberg is a unique entity in the Democratic field because whereas I don't, Joe Biden, I think honestly, like the biggest thing that scares me about Joe Biden is that I just do not think that he has the stamina to run a robust campaign and has the depth of support to beat Donald Trump. His policies, not my favorite. Pete Buttigieg, I think not only do I think he would lose, but I think like he doesn't have any policies. He stands on nothing. And I don't, a guy like that is just going to go to the highest bidder immediately, it seems to me. And others, I have my various complaints with different, all the candidates, including Bernie Sanders. But Michael Bloomberg represents a problem of a different ilk. Yes, I think he pursued a tremendous amount of racist policies in New York City. Yes, I think his understanding of the financial crisis is highly problematic, particularly in terms of what he would do going forward in that regard. Yes, I think his desire to cut Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid and perceives these things as luxuries in some way is problematic. And yes, I think the fact that he walks amongst us as if he was a deity and the rest of humanity is basically, it's his responsibility to take care of for them. But that's, it's some type of Straussian perspective. But the other thing that is highly problematic, that is indicative of a problem that we have in our democracy, is the influence of money. The influence of concentrated money. Concentrated power that exists in the context of corporations and concentrated power that exists in the context of individuals who have so much money that they can literally change the course of things like Bill Gates doing with education in this country for the worse, by their own admission. Michael Bloomberg is going around now. Yes, it's true that he gave money to Republicans to take the Senate. Yes, it's true that he financed Rick Snyder in Michigan. Do you think he's going to win in Michigan? Aside from the fact that I think like he is a guaranteed lose in the general election. What is really important is people understand the impact where that type of concentrated wealth has on our government and on our society. All the endorsements he's bought, that kind of money is really fundamentally at the root of problems that we have in this country. It's both reflective of a problem and it is in some ways a problem in and of itself. It's both. That must be named. And you could say he is a plutocrat. That the money, he is part of the plutonomy, and because he has so much money, and we played that video yesterday. Maybe we should play the other one soon. We have another one, but it's super important for people to understand it. He is an oligarch. He has so much money that he has the power of literally tens, if not more than tens of millions of people to shape the policy, but speaks with one voice, and often it could be whim and completely misinformed. The reason why people were poisoned in Flint, Michigan was because of a failure of democracy, because the electeds were stripped of power and the governor simply appointed someone to run that city and they were not accountable to the people. Imagine that times 10. when you have someone whose money is the basis of all their power. And so when Jason Johnson refuses to accept the concept that Michael Bloomberg is an oligarch, it is very problematic. And he must know it, because here he is on XM satellite radio, referring back to an argument that he had with Nina Turner on MSNBC about the term oligarch. And here he is changing and reinterpreting what that exchange was all about. I don't know if maybe he went and looked on Wikipedia or what, but here he is explaining it on the Karen Hunter show.
Her professionally, wrote great articles about her when I was
He's
at
talking
Chicago
about
Defender,
Nina Turner.
When everybody thought that she should run against Marcia Fudge. Okay. So like I've been cool with Nina for a long time. I've had personal conversations with her about her support for Bernie and what I think about that and whether or not it makes sense. What actually happened on the air was she was doing an interview with Chris Matthews and she referred to Mike Bloomberg as an oligarch. And she was like, we got to do something about these oligarchs, et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, good God, really? Really? Is this what we're doing? And so the studio said, hey, Jason, would you like to say something? I said, look, this is not the kind of language that you should be using in campaigns. This is that high-minded grad school cipher crap that a bunch of sort of liberal pinheads want to throw out because they want to sound smart. You don't go around calling people oligarchs in America. First off, most people don't even know what the hell it means.
But he is kind of an oligarch, though.
But that's not the issue.
Okay, pause it. All right. So there it is. Okay. So the fact that he's an oligarch is not the issue, according to Jason Johnson, in this interview. And the reason why you don't do it is because you're not speaking the language of the people, of the masses, who don't know what an oligarch is. Now, first off, I got news for you. You're watching cable news. If you don't know what an oligarch is, you should be educated to that, because you represent a significantly small portion of people in the country who theoretically are the most interested in politics. And therefore, that is the most important people to educate, because they're the ones who go out and talk to other people, theoretically. But I'm not here to argue whether it is smart to say the words oligarch if you're running a campaign, which, again, this is a debate show with Chris Matthews.
Nice of him to care so much about Bernie messaging.
But that's what it is. If this is a messaging thing, then how does he explain this is what he said on that day to Nina Turner? Which is not, if you hear the word messaging, you tell me.
Nina, you work for a candidate who's part of the 1%. I have no problem with criticizing the system that allows Mike Bloomberg to make all the money that he makes, the system that allows him to buy what he wants to buy, the system that allows him to buy himself into the administration and buy himself into the debates is a problem. But to call him an oligarch, I think, is a misnomer in this environment. And again, you're working for somebody who's part of the 1%.
Pause it for 1 second. It's a misnomer. That means you've named him incorrectly. He's not an oligarch, in other words. Now, a misnomer in this context, I don't know what that means. That's like, for us oldies, like, Norm Crosby doing a routine on the Tonight Show. A misnomer in this context? No, that's exactly the context in which you would call him an oligarch. It's the context in which he's an oligarch. But continue on. No, hold on. I want to keep hearing him. He's going to, because theoretically, right, this is just about messaging. Professor. He's a professor.
Part of the 1%. Do you call him an oligarch? No, you don't.
Yeah, go back.
And again, you're working for somebody who's part of the 1%. Do you call him an oligarch? No, you don't. You say he's a rich guy. Because just
All right,
because
pause it. Now, I don't want to quibble about whether Bernie is in the first. I don't want to. I will. If it's in with the 1%, it is true that in 1 year, Bernie Sanders earned, and maybe in multiple years, I don't know how long the book pays off.
Got a long tail, Sam.
He was in the 1% of income. Nationally, it's like $400,000. I would imagine in Vermont, it may even be less. In New York, it's like probably double that. I don't know. But in terms of net worth, you need, I think it's $2.5 million to be in the 1%, if I'm not mistaken, in the United States. And Bernie's net worth is somewhere around supposedly $2 million. And he writes down...
February 5th.
And then he says, and then he goes on February 5th, he says, like, he talks about all these oligarchs. He puts Bernie Sanders in with George Soros, Mike Bloomberg, Mark Cuban, Donald Trump, Oprah, Jay-Z. The disparity, I mean, we played the video the other day of the rice, right? Like, yeah, look at the money. $60 billion for Bloomberg. Tyler Perry has $600 million. George Soros has $8.3 billion. Bob Johnson has $1 billion. Bernie Sanders has $2 million in net worth. Bill Gates, $110 billion. I mean, this is just absurd. It's just absurd. And all right, so let's go back. So it's, I don't want to, I'm being a little picky, 1%. But the bottom line is, let's hear it, because maybe there's more opportunity. I don't want to cut them out. I don't want to come off.
Does he think oligarch just means someone with money?
It means when you have so much money that you can go and change the nature of U.S. education for decades because you think in your head you know what you're talking about. And then after the 10-year experiment's over, in terms of the Gates Foundation, you hire the Rand Corporation. They tell you, we got it wrong. Should have listened to the educators.
It's sort of like the difference between buying a mayor and buying mayors, plural.
Right, exactly. Or, you know what? I got news for you. Like, you got to be in a pretty small town to take some of your $2 million net worth and be able to buy a mayor.
Like, I don't think...
You might be able to get like one parking spot somewhere.
Parks and Rec Center.
Right, like here's $50,000. Can I get a parking spot out in front of my house or whatever it is?
Like, I don't think Jay-Z's ever bought a mayor.
Well, I wouldn't.
I have no idea what Jay-Z is doing.
Jay-Z's a billionaire, so
he's
let's
living
not
it up.
defend Jay-Z.
Exactly. Here we go.
Do you call him an oligarch? No, you don't. You say he's a rich guy. Because just because somebody has a tremendous amount of money doesn't mean that they're not necessarily representing the people. And if you want to use the term elite, you can use whatever kind of term that you want to use. But at the end of the day, the enemy of this country, the enemy of the poor, is not just everybody who happens to be rich. It is a capitalistic system that abuses people. And if you want to speak about that, that's fine. But if you want to name call people, that's not going to help Bernie if he becomes a nominee, and he's going to need Mike Bloomberg's money.
All right, now listen, here's the fact. It doesn't matter if you have a capitalistic system. If you have someone who has so much more money who has more money than 50% of the population combined, and it was probably like Bloomberg has more than 1/3 of the population combined, to be fair. He has more money than 100 million people together have in this country. It doesn't matter if there's a capitalistic system or not. That's why you can have in systems that are not capitalistic, that are just simply like, I don't know, just aren't even systematized. You could have an oligarch in Somalia, where there's like barely a system.
Yeah, you could have an oligarchy under some form of authoritarian communism.
Exactly. Somebody comes in and has that type of money, they're an oligarch. It's not it may be capitalism that created that oligarch, but the existence of that oligarch is a problem in and of itself. And you could tax that oligarch in such a way that it would confiscate that money. We could just say in a capitalistic system, one law. We're doing one law. We're going to do one reform. Cannot own more than $500 million in wealth. Well, let's just say 250 million. I don't know, 150 million, whatever. You pick the number. Everything else about the system is exactly the same. It's just that you can't have that much wealth. And if you do, we confiscate it through taxation. If you want to leave, capital flight, we lose a couple of billionaires, big deal.
It's like a salary cap.
Big deal. Big deal. A rich man buys one loaf of bread a day. And you would get rid of that one problem. There'd be other problems. There's no doubt about it. But you would get rid of that one problem. That is, they would not have the money to go and drop $750 million into education. they would not have the money to go and drop $5 million like the way that where's my pen? Where's my favorite pen? Not even favorite. Where's my third favorite pen in the office? I lost it. Oh, well, that's what $5 million is to that dude. And you start to buy people all around. That's basically what we're talking about. So.
Well, it's somewhat encouraging that even Bloomberg stands are forced to pretend to criticize capitalism.
Yeah. Yes.
Also, this guy's a tenured professor.
I know.
Yeah, I got news for you about credentials.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably just my PMC upbringing talking, but you expect them to be a little more coherent than that.
To think that oligarch might have sort of connotations outside of just talking about Russians in the 90s.
Maybe he's getting paid by Bloomberg. Who knows?